Your San Francisco 49ers are in the playoffs, primed and waiting to see who their opponent is. But that does not mean that in a bye week, we don't have things to talk about. We've got former 49er coach Jim Harbaugh. We got to talk about his victory yesterday. Now that it's been 48 hours, are we still worried about Jake Moody? And then we're also going to rank Brock Purdy against the other playoff quarterbacks. We're going to talk about those things plus more next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday. And no, I don't have So Real Sunil. He and I are actually going to do a show tomorrow. But tonight, I got my guy, Marco from Clutch Gene Sports. Marco, how you doing tonight, my man?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. It's been a long time since we've been able to actually record. I know I'm always texting you like, hey, bro, let's record. My time schedule's never been able to work. Finally got it to happen. Excited to be here today, man. Thanks for having me on.
Right. Well, hey, short answer is we're still worried about Jake Moody, according to David. Appreciate that. All right, Marco, first topic at hand. Jim Harbaugh finally got the championship monkey off of his back. You and I had two very different takes on this championship last night. Within 30 seconds of each other, I tweeted out that everybody who hates Jim Harbaugh has to give him his due credit. I want to hear from you now. He finally won a national championship. And you tweeted out, why are 49er fans so obsessed with Jim Harbaugh? Two completely different reactions. One of the rare times that I said something where fans were actually on my side, which was great to see. Not so much on your end. Where are you coming from on this Jim Harbaugh thing? Let's talk about it a little bit.
So, like, I'm all for giving Jim his flowers, right? Like, he won a national championship. Like, kudos to Jim Harbaugh, right? But when you looked at the 49er fan base for a good while, they were kind of mad at Jim Harbaugh for like the first couple of years that he left, in the sense of like, oh, well, he didn't run the ball with Frank Gore. He didn't do this and do that. And then he kind of leaves. The Niners go through a little bit of coaching carousel, and then they hire Kyle Shanahan. And then it's 49er fans were like, well, Jim Harbaugh can never win the big game. That's why he can't beat Ohio State. He's never going to beat Ohio State. He's going to get fired. 2020, a lot of Niner fans were saying he should be fired from Michigan. And then now, all of a sudden, he wins a national championship. And throughout this year, during his free hardball where he was suspended, I saw 49er fans who shouldn't be really caring about other head coaches in the sense of Kyle Shanahan's a great head coach, but like, oh, he's so good. I love Jim Harbaugh. Oh, Jim Harbaugh this, Jim Harbaugh that. And then I saw a couple of people tweet, if Jim Harbaugh was the 49ers head coach, we'd win the Super Bowl this year. I saw to me, I'm like, what are you so obsessed about Jim Harbaugh over? And it wasn't just one person who tweeted it. Like, it was a few people who were like, oh, if Jim Harbaugh was our head coach, we'd win a Super Bowl. I've seen a couple other guys talk about Jim Harbaugh in that way. Good coach. Don't get me wrong. It's funny because I had a lot of people in the quote tweets like, oh, you don't understand what he brought to this franchise. Nah, I understand what he brought to this franchise. I was there in the locker rooms during those years. So for me, it's like I was there around the team couple of years before Harbaugh, the years of Harbaugh. So it's like I was able to enjoy those years. It's cool to enjoy them, but he's no longer the head coach. You don't got to no longer jock ride him. Kyle Shanahan's your head coach. Stop being obsessed over him. Congratulate him and move on.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this thought that if he was the head coach, they'd win a Super Bowl this year. Yeah, maybe. But they act as if the season's done. The season's not done. How do we know that Shanahan's not going to win the Super Bowl? Are we already assuming that it's done and Shanahan's not going to win? That one confuses me a little bit.
Yeah, it was confusing because like then you had people like say, "Oh, well, Kyle Shanahan, it's your turn." Like, what are we doing? Like we have a bye week. Like Kyle's chilling. He's chilling because he has a bye week, and you guys are worried about Jim Harbaugh winning a championship so much that you're bringing Kyle Shanahan into this. And that's where I was talking about when it came obsessive. To me, that's obsessive talk when you're bringing in Kyle Shanahan into the conversation. Bro, give Jim his credit. Who's got it better than us? Nobody. That was great times. But all the other rah like stuff where, oh, Jim Harbaugh this, if we had him, Christian McCaffrey wouldn't be used so much. He would use more than one running. Like, shut up, man. Like that's the obsessive talk I was mentioning.
Oh man. Well, I gotta say, I mean, for me, I love Jim Harbaugh, and I'm so happy that he won a national championship, and all of that is awesome. But he's not the coach anymore. But this is a real question, and I think that it remains a question. Who's the better overall coach, though? Not just for the 49ers, but who's a better coach? Is it Harbaugh or is it Shanahan? I think that's a fair question to ask.
That's absolutely a fair question. We're going X's and O's. I'm taking Kyle Shanahan. We going a guy
Yeah.
to motivate and bring on a team. For example, Harbaugh, he came onto a team that had talent. Like, people make it seem like the Niners didn't have talent when he became the Niners head coach. He had a team that was stacked with talent. I sent you a text
Mhm.
today with all the talented players he had. But if we go X's and O's, I'm definitely going Kyle Shanahan over Harbaugh. But if I want a motivator, give me Harbaugh. He's one of the best motivators, and best coaches when bringing a group of men together, and that's why Harbaugh is such a great head coach.
Yeah, Harbaugh is more of the CEO type, just like his brother. His brother doesn't call plays, but he's the CEO. And I think you can make a case for either one. I think we're going to see Harbaugh back in the NFL. And so time will tell if he can go get that illustrious Super Bowl ring. Right now, I mean, Harbaugh's proven it across more avenues. He's proven it in college. He's proven it in the NFL. He's got the national championship. He's proven it across 3 college teams now. So I think the resume says that Harbaugh is the better coach as of now. But Kyle's much younger than Harbaugh is. And it doesn't mean that Harbaugh would be better for this team in particular. This team was put together by Kyle. These are Kyle's guys. So to say that Harbaugh would just take it over and win a Super Bowl, I think it's a bit over the top, but I also think it's okay to say that right now, Harbaugh is the better, more accomplished coach. And I think that's just factual at this point.
And that's definitely true. Harbaugh's more, he's the proven coach when it comes to actually having that natty behind his back now. Like, having that ring gives him a lot more weight. Yeah, you bring up Kyle Shanahan's records, Harbaugh's records. If you take away the first 2 years of when Kyle had to rebuild, he had to completely gut that team, right? So I
Mhm.
usually like to take away and this goes for any coach. Like, when they're coming in and they're completely gutting a team, I usually give them the first 2 years is your leeway. So for Kyle, I understand like his record isn't gonna show as great as Harbaugh's, but X's and O's, I think Kyle overall head coach, the mentor and the leader, Harbaugh.
Well, this is Shanahan's 7th year here, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, essentially, in the 4-year time span, they accomplished the same things. I mean, when you really look at it, you're right. He had to gut it. So, really, year 3 is kind of what you're looking at. So, year 3, 4, 5, 6, that's your 4 years. You got Harbaugh's 4 years, and they both accomplished essentially the same things, 3 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl appearance with a loss. So they basically have done the same exact thing with the 49ers once the team was fully built. So, both of them have done a fantastic job. I don't care who's a better coach ultimately. I just want to get number 6. And number 6 does not come with Harbaugh. It comes with Shanahan this year. So, you know what's funny, Marco, is Facebook. And actually, the only reason I have Facebook still is for memories. I'm only friends with my wife and my dad on there, and it's for memories. That's it. But you still get the this time 6 years ago or this time 10 years ago, this event happened. And I'm tired of this time 10 years ago. Who's got it better than us? Quest for 6. This is our year. Can we just get it done already? I'm so done with being second place year after year after year. Just get the damn thing done.
No, I agree, man. Like, that's what was funny because after I sent out that tweet, I had a bunch of people like in the mentions, in the quotes, he's like, "Oh, you don't understand what he brought those years." I'm like, and I thought it was funny because like I'm not the kind of person to like boast or be like over the top and like try to show people, oh, look where I was at. Like, so there's times I'm like, man, do I want to go find those Facebook pictures that my dad's posted with me in the locker room chilling with like, do I want to do that during that Harbaugh year? No, I'm not gonna do it. Like, it's funny
Yeah.
just seeing those comments. But yeah, man, let's get the sixth one. I'm tired of the quest for 6, tired of the all this stuff. Let's just get the sixth one out the way.
Yeah, I'm ready for it, man. And they seem prime for sure. But there is one little thing that might have crept up on Sunday, and that is one Jake Moody missing some kicks. Now, I talked about this in the post game. I'm sure everybody's been talking about it. I'm sure fans are like, God, seriously, are we still talking about this? Yes. But ultimately, I want to ask you, it's been 48 hours. We've had the cool down period. You've got to take the whole season into account, knowing where the 49ers are at. Is this Moody thing still a big deal 48 hours later? Is it a big deal till they play and he makes some kicks? Like, what are we looking for to get over this Jake Moody hangover, I'll call it, from Sunday's game?
I mean, it's a big deal, especially when the last kicker you had didn't miss a kick in the playoffs, right? Like that's a big deal. So the fact that he's missing kicks, and it's not like he misses one, comes in and announces the next one. Like he misses them in bunches, and that's the issue. Is those misses in bunches? I mean, you could go a stretch in a game without getting any points because you were relying on Moody to kick a field goal. So you could have a 6-point swing turn into a freaking 20-point swing if the other team's able to score off of those field goals missed. So for me, it is a concern. Now, I also not too concerned on it because the 49ers, the first two teams the 49ers play, the game shouldn't have to come into the hands of Moody. So it's like if
Yeah.
you if the game is in the hands of the leg of Moody, there's an issue. I think the 49ers team is able to dominate whatever team is in front of them in the divisional round enough that Jake Moody doesn't matter, which is kind of messed up to say, but I'm worried about it because if something happens crazy, a punt muffed or whatever, and we have to rely on Moody, are we really sure he could hit that game winner? Are we sure he could hit a clutch field goal 30 seconds left and going into half? That's 45 yarders. Now you're giving a team like the Detroit Lions good field position where now they could flip the game. That's where I'm concerned.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is initially I thought about it as a game winner only, but then I realized that playoff games can be tight at any time. And sometimes you can make a game tight by missing these field goals in the second quarter, the third quarter. And that's really my bigger concern. I'm actually not that concerned with the 49ers being in the tightest of games until the Super Bowl. We can talk about it then. Hopefully he's made some kicks and we feel a lot better about it. I'm not that worried going through the NFC. And maybe it's the fan of me. I'm sure people are like, Jesse, shut up. You're going to jinx it. They got to get through each game, one game at a time. I really don't see it that way. I just think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC, period, point blank. And with that being said, I don't expect these games to come down to a situation where they need a game-winning field goal. However, if he misses one or two throughout the course of a game, now all of a sudden is a game much closer than it needs to be. That is my concern. So instead of winning by 10 points with a few minutes left in the game, all of a sudden you've got a driving team that is only down one score because Moody missed a field goal early in the game or missed an extra point or something like that. That's actually my bigger concern. I don't see a scenario where game winner, gotta have it, Jake Moody's got to deliver in the NFC side of the bracket. That's just me.
Yeah, like that's where I'm concerned, right? Like, is if Kyle trusts, like it's a close game to start the game. Kyle trusts Moody to go out there and hit a 45 yarder. I mean, he's pretty accurate when it's 45 or under 50. Like it's been proven. But if he misses that, now you're flipping field position. Now teams, Dak Prescott, the Jared Goff and the Lions, those are good offenses. It's not like they're shitty offenses. So now you're giving a team and the probability, and I'm a very, very big when it comes to analytics in terms of probability, where you get the ball on the field determines the likelihood of you scoring a touchdown or scoring
Yeah.
points in general.
That's where
So
EPA comes from. That's the EPA stat that
exactly.
everybody talks about and makes it a quarterback stat, but really it's a team stat. Anyways, I digress.
So that's where I'm concerned because that's where you could flip a game or your defense legs start getting tired. Their legs are heavy because now they're having to cover the offenses behind. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm concerned. Now, what's also more concerning is when he misses those field goals, his head goes down,
Mm,
walks off the field. Like normally you see Justin Tucker hit it, like miss. Okay, smiles, walks off the field, head high. Moody, he's complete opposite. He puts his head down and walks off the field. So sad. I'm like, that's concerning because now you're showing body language. Body language is terrible when it comes to wearing your body language, your emotions on your sleeves. And like that's to me more concerning than anything.
That's a very, very good point. You know, there is a psychological side of this, and kickers are very finicky. They're like baseball players. They got rally caps and all sorts of weird stuff that they do. They got their little rituals. They come out and they pull the grass and throw it in the air and lick their fingers and feel which way the wind's going. Like they're just different cats. You know what I mean? So when they get in their own mind, that can be an issue. It can be a major issue. So I guess I hadn't really thought about it like that. And when you look at a Justin Tucker who's missed 5 kicks this year himself, albeit on 12 more attempts,
That's funny.
he's established as one of the best kickers of all time, and he has that confidence. He's also a guy who has set a field goal distance record in a game-winning situation. Believe it or not, it's not like he got an interesting chance to break the record at the end of the half to go for the longest field goal. No, he was in Detroit, game winner, game literally on the line, and he breaks the record. That's how good this dude is. So, you know, those things do matter. Those things really do matter, especially when it comes to kickers. Robbie Gold, yeah. He did have a limited leg for sure, but we could count on him in the playoffs. And that's the other thing too. I don't want to make this an overblown thing to the point to where it's like, okay, because he missed these kicks or he had the yips a little bit throughout the season or missed the game winner against Cleveland, what have you, doesn't mean he's going to miss in the playoffs. It's the same thing I say about Purdy. Purdy is yet to deliver this year in game-winning situations. That just means he hasn't done it yet. If you give him another opportunity, how do we know he's not going to deliver? Just because you haven't yet doesn't mean you're not in the future. So the hope is he gets a little bit of swag in him. He's got a great leg. I mean, he's got all the intangibles to make these kicks. He's just not doing it. So I don't know. I don't know the scientifics behind kicking, but somebody was saying in one of the chats earlier that they think it's because of his plant leg. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but whatever it is, hopefully they can get it fixed. I'm sure they've got kicking coaches like they do quarterback coaches, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what the special teams coach has to be there for, right? Like he's understanding the way they're supposed to kick. And shout out to a couple guys in the chat. I see you guys who said you guys have subbed to me throughout the time. I appreciate you guys for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's super cool. Definitely go give him some love for sure. Clutch Gene Sports, check it out. All right, let's talk about some future things that could potentially change the way that the 49ers operate. We have 2 guys, different roles, who have taken interviews with other teams. So we'll start with Wilkes first. Just because I don't think Wilkes is leaving. I think that he's going to get interviews because he's respected. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to land these jobs. I look at the Chargers. They're clearly going after Harbaugh. If Harbaugh is available, they're taking Harbaugh. Now, if not, maybe they'll go Wilkes. So Wilkes is interviewing, going through the motions. I think he's going to be here one more year. Do you agree with that sentiment, or are you on a different thought process here? You think he's gone?
No, yeah, I definitely think he's staying, man. Like I think it's one of those situations where Kyle's gonna do the same thing with Steve Wilkes as he did with D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh. That he's gonna push them to go take these interviews. He's gonna have a lot of people around the league want to interview these guys. And not only that, Steve Wilkes has the reputation, but you gotta, as a defensive coordinator, head coach, you gotta pick the right job. Like you can't just go to any job like an offensive guy. I'm like, you know what, we're gonna break this down and rebuild it. The moment you're a defensive coordinator who's calling the plays as the head coach, it's a lot different because if your team isn't playing good defensively, you're gone. Like it's just how it is for some reason. So I think he's gonna be around for at least one more year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that he'll probably do very well again this next year, and then he'll get a job, which lines up perfectly because if Saleh does end up getting fired, he's not going to get fired this offseason. It'll be next offseason, and we can just bring Saleh right back. So this is great. This is perfect for the San Francisco 49ers. And I think Wilkes does deserve a shot. Personally, I thought he deserved a shot with Carolina. I just don't think it's going to come this year. So that being said, that's good news for the 49ers because I think he's done a pretty damn good job. I know we had that 3-game skid where people got really upset in the middle of the season and blamed him. I think Wilkes, for the most part, has done very good. And the secondary has improved a ton under him, which is exactly what he was supposed to bring to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going over to Peters, that's my guy right there, man. He's gone. He's if he's not promoted, he's gone. Good is gone. And what I mean by promoted is we obviously John Lynch is the president of football operations as well as holding that GM spot. The assistant GM's Adam Peters. If Adam Peters isn't given the role of GM, but given the power, because you could be given the title of GM, but if you're not given the power and the ability to control the 90-man roster, and that's still under Lynch, you're a puppet. And at the end of the day, Adam Peters doesn't want to be a puppet. He wants to be the guy who has his fingerprints all over this team. If you look at it, he already does. A lot of guys, Fred Warner, George Kittle, some of the best players on the Niners were evaluated, and Adam Peters is the reason they're in our building right now. I think the best spot for Adam Peters is the Commanders. It's not just a GM spot; it's the actual president of football operations over there. So he's going to be the one in charge, and he's going to have his fingerprints all over that entire organization with the new owner. The number 2 overall pick. They could even trade up and try to get the number 1 overall pick. I think Adam Peters is in a great situation this year. I love how he took some interviews last year, declined the ones that he felt like, you know what, that's not a good spot for me to interview. He's in the driver's seat. I think he's as good as gone if he's not promoted. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think that when you look at the 49ers, even if he's given the GM spot, you've got Lynch who has his fingerprints all over things still. This Lynch, we have to remember, had a chance to go do TV last offseason. Chose not to because he loved being a part of the team and in the trenches. Is he going to just let go of things that easily? I don't see that happening. And ultimately, the real shot caller is Kyle Shanahan. If Kyle likes a guy, they're going with that guy. It doesn't matter what else is going on. It's Kyle's decision ultimately on what they do. You've seen guys like Trent Williams was getting ready to walk out the building, go to the Chiefs, he picks up the phone, calls Kyle. Kyle's like, done, you're staying. So these are decisions that ultimately Kyle gets the last say on. If that is not a position that he wants to be in, then I do agree that he's gone. And it does sound like to me, at least from what I know about Adam Peters and have read about him and what have you, that he would prefer to be in a position where he has full control. And I think the Commanders, oddly enough, I thought the Chargers would be a great spot. The Commanders, oddly enough, are a really, really good spot for him because he's going to have time to rebuild the roster. They're not going to just get rid of him after a year or two. He's going to be given that time. And this is a franchise that is looking for stability after many years of not having it, going through new ownership. They're going to fully trust this process and give not only the GM, but the GM is going to give the head coach the time that they need to build this partnership. I foresee the Commanders going through a situation much like the 49ers, where it was like, hey, you come in, 7-year deal. You got your time. I'm staying out of your way. Take care of it. Do the football stuff. We trust you. And I think that job is going to be very, very similar.
Absolutely. And I think, but the only thing is that's going to keep Adam Peters from going is he's from San Jose, man. He's from the area. He's grew up a Niner fan. At the end of the day, it has to be the right thing, the right situation. The price has to be right. Because leaving your hometown, the team you grew up rooting for, that's a big, like, it just holds a lot. Like, that's your dream job. Like, you're leaving your dream job to go to another team to get the title and the power, when you could wait a few more years and John Lynch probably leaves and you have that title. And I think that's why he's been kind of waiting, like trying to wait every year a little bit more. Am I going to get that opportunity? I thought it was funny in the chat. They're like, hey, it's Christmas has been a month ago. Hey, man, happy wife, happy life. We're leaving that up until Valentine's Day, man.
Oh, that's pretty funny, actually. I thought about the same thing. My wife's the exact opposite. Literally the day after, Christmas lights came down outside. 3 days later, everything inside was put away. She's absolutely crazy. So that's the way it is. So my happy-go-lucky butt got to go up on the roof, remove all those lights. She did the bushes and stuff, and then she takes care of the inside because she's the decorator. That's not my job. Cosmo, I I encourage you to go watch the first press conference, the introductory press conference of when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were brought onto this team. Listen to it very, very closely. Yes, Kyle Shanahan is the shot caller. He says, John Lynch says, I've got the 90 man. Kyle has the 53. When pressed a little bit further, he said, well, it's written into our contracts that we both have say in the decisions. And then let's not forget that Kyle is the one that hired Lynch, not vice versa. So, yes, ipso facto, Kyle is the shot caller. Why do you think some of these third round running backs were here? Those were Kyle picks. So there you go. And also, let's not forget, when the Trey Lance pick came, what did Lynch say 3 days before the draft? Hey, you know what? I've given my opinions. Everybody's given their opinion. Ultimately, this is Kyle's decision. I'm not going to take this away from him. Whatever he decides is what's going to go. So
but I think
yeah,
too that he was also trying to save ass too, though. Like if he gets his decision wrong, I want everyone to understand this wasn't me who made that draft pick. This is Kyle Shanahan's quarterback. I think also too, like, and that was an issue, and that's been a little bit of an issue with Kyle and John because they're like, you know what, that's your pick, that's my pick. Or then you've seen Adam Peters go on and do interviews, and he's like, actually, those are my picks. The ones that are working right now, those are my picks. Like, so that's
of course
funny.
they're gonna do those things. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, like just watching everything go on and watching Kyle and John. Kyle has more power.
Yeah, he does. But the flip side is there have been some good picks as well. And we don't necessarily know the ins and outs of every single little thing. So we have to give Kyle some credit too when things go well. Obviously, we can't just say, hey, you had all the running backs and all the busts, and Adam Peters and Lynch had these, whatever. We can't go that. It's ultimately everybody gives their input. And I'm sure that Kyle said, hey, I really want to go with this guy. Maybe Ayuk. Maybe Ayuk was a guy that he liked, or Debo, or something like that. I'm sure that there are guys that he's brought in that were his decisions that ultimately have worked out as well. But yes, he is the shot caller. No doubt about that in my mind. Just watch that introductory press conference. I think it's very eye-opening. It's about 7 years old now, so go check it out. All right, let's talk about what's currently going on with this team. Playoffs, a week and a half away. This week's flying by. Actually, before we get into this, I have a gripe. I have an NFL gripe. This has nothing to do with the 49ers. The game that is on Peacock on Saturday night, so stupid, so frustrating. And this is a glimpse into what we can expect probably in the next 5 to 7 years. Everything's going to be cast to these specific apps. And as fans of football, you're going to have each stupid app to go watch the games that you want to watch. It's just super frustrating. It's just like cable, but with apps on your phones and computers and iPads and whatever. Just a gripe. I had to throw that out there. Very frustrating to see that.
All it's gonna do is it's gonna cause a lot of people just to keep going to the legal streams and getting the illegal jailbroken Fire Sticks because it's so terrible to have Peacock and that's a very good game right there. The Chiefs and the Dolphins, like
Dolphins,
what are
yeah.
you doing? Like if anything, put the Eagles and Bucks on there, which is probably the least exciting game of them all.
That's the Monday night game too, which is whatever. Either way, it just a gripe. I saw that. I was like, really? You're going to put a playoff game on this specific app? Whatever. It's frustrating to see. But that being said, 49ers don't play this weekend. They have 4 potential matchups that they can run through, right? We know that they're not going to play Dallas round 2. We know that they're not going to play Detroit round 2. But depending on how things play out, they could play the Bucks, they could play the Eagles, they could play the Rams, or they could play the Packers. So let's go from 4 to 1. The easiest game to the hardest game. You start with number 4. Go.
Easiest game, I would probably go Tampa Bay. The reason is I don't think Baker is good against like a good defense. He's been struggling the last few weeks of the season. So I think that'd be the easiest game for us. But they also do provide some challenges. They have Vita Vea. They could play the run a little bit. We've already gotten to see what they look like. Their secondary isn't great. But they have good receivers. They got Well, that's interesting. That's
Yeah, considering he was just in Stanford, he just won a national championship without Andrew Luck, and he was good before he got to Stanford. Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, like the Bucks have a good core. But I feel like Baker Mayfield is set to play the 49ers, and he would have a Baker Mayfield like game. And what I mean by that is not the Baker Mayfield that he's playing like right now, the Baker Mayfield that everyone decides to label him as this bad quarterback for some reason. Like he has this stigma that he's this terrible quarterback when really he's not. But he would end up having that terrible game, and people are like, we told you he's not. He's the same quarterback. So I think that's the easiest game.
Yeah, he's very mid. I will say that he's a starter in this league. He's better than I thought he was going to be. I remember during that draft or leading up to that draft, I said Josh Allen was the clear number one, and Baker would be out of the league in 5 years. So not out of the league, not that bad. But I was partially right. I mean, he wasn't very good. It wasn't worthy of the first overall pick, but I went a little too far with that take. I was wrong. So, and kudos to Baker. I actually think that he's some of the personality flaws that may have been there in Cleveland with some of that pressure. I think going to the Rams last year ultimately saved his career, and seeing what he could do at the tail end of that season with his back against the wall, he did everything he could to do it. He earned a spot with Tampa Bay. I think he's played relatively well, but he's a mediocre quarterback in this league, which is fine. It's a stopgap guy. Baker's not great. He's not horrible. He's just blah. That being said, I think the Eagles are the easiest matchup. I look at the injuries that they've got. They just lost AJ Brown. They lost who was their safety that they picked up?
Sidney Brown.
Sidney Brown is done for the year, I believe. I don't know what's going on with Devontae Smith. And this team can't beat anybody. They couldn't beat the Cardinals in a must-win situation. They tried to roll their starters out to beat the Giants. That got out of hand very quickly, and then they just pulled their starters. I think this team is reeling about as bad as they could. I think they have no shot to beat anybody, including Tampa. I think the Eagles would be the easiest matchup at this point. Now, I assume that when we go to number 3, we're just going to flip-flop these two. Maybe. I could be wrong about that. I'm going to put Tampa next. Are you going with the Eagles?
Yeah, I would go with the Eagles.
Okay. They're shot. I mean, I don't know, man. I just think, as Jason says, the wheels have fallen off. The Eagles have fallen completely apart, man. Is AJ Brown done for the year? I didn't even see the diagnosis on his injury.
I haven't seen an update on him. I don't know what it was or what, but even without AJ Brown, the fact that Jalen Hurts is probably going to play with the finger injury and he could run, it gives you that like the unknown. Like, is he just going to run all game? And you know how we are against running quarterbacks, like or stuff like that. And all it takes is one big play, their defense to play well. Like, to me, that's why I think it's the third easiest game, or the second easiest game. And Baker, we know what Baker is.
Yeah, we definitely. That's true. That's true. All right. So slight disagreement. I've got the Eagles as the easiest game. You have the Bucks, and then we flip flop at number 3. This one's going to get interesting, and it's crazy that no matter how we slice it, we've got the 2 lowest seeds as the toughest potential opponents for the San Francisco 49ers. Give me your number 2 on this list.
The number 2 on this list, the harder game, I actually think it's gonna be Green Bay. Green Bay, they're playing really well, man. You look at Jordan Love, everyone wanted to hate on Rich. Shout out Rich for him saying Jordan Love's a good quarterback, has 2 bad games. Everyone jumped on, oh, he's a terrible quarterback. But now when you look at it, Jordan Love has played really, really good football. And he's at the point where they don't have a true number 1 receiver. They have a lot of young talent. And sometimes that's better going into the playoffs, having a bunch of young talent, guys that want to prove themselves. Good running game. You got AJ Dillon, you got Aaron Jones. Their defense has played well. I think the Packers are a team where we will still beat them. We still blow them out. We have their recipe to whoop on them. I still think it would be a 20-point blowout, but the Jordan Love in their offense could put up some points, so it can make it an interesting game.
Yeah, I think their defense has talent, much like the Eagles, though. They just haven't lived up to expectation. They have, I think they're rolling with 2 backup tackles, but really have for a majority of the year, and it hasn't been that big of a problem. I think they're going to get Watson back. Their young receivers 1 through 4 are actually pretty good. None of them are bona fide superstars yet, but they all can ball a little bit. And Jordan Love is playing really good football. You know, it's interesting because whatever Green Bay has done, their formula of sitting these quarterbacks for 3 years or so at a time really seems to have panned out. Now, they weren't quite sure about Love to the point where they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. They did this team-friendly deal, but as long as he played so well, he could get more money or as much. And he bet on himself, and he did a very good job. I think for now, at least, they're going to sign him to a multi-year deal, and we'll see where his career is going. But, you know, him, Stroud, Purdy, like these guys are young, and they're all playing very good football at this point. So we'll see what his career holds. But yeah, I think that they're a live dog for sure. I'm going to put them at number 2 as well. And, you know, you get a team that is playing with house money. I think that's always a dangerous situation. You got a team that had 0 expectations. They made the playoffs a year after not making the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. They trade Aaron Rodgers. Love's panning out. Clearly, they've won that trade, and that's awesome for their future. But this was supposed to be the down year before they kind of put things back together. And here they are in the playoffs. If they get past Dallas, now all of a sudden this team has all the confidence in the world. Yeah, they've got it. So now who knows what can happen? I just think that you're going to get a team that would run a bunch of trick plays and do some crazy stuff. They literally would go balls to the wall, whatever it is, to win that game. And I think that team can be dangerous because of that. There are no expectations. So I agree. I think they're the number 2 team as well. So that brings us to the number 1 team. We both agree it's the Rams. Why is it the Rams for you, though?
The Rams are one of the. So when you do the Purdy ranks, like, right, the quarterback ranks, they have one of the quarterbacks that's up there when it comes to playoffs, right? Like Matthew Stafford's a hell of a quarterback. They've won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. They have a very good coaching staff over there. Raheem Morris. You got Sean McVay. They got very good receivers. Two very good receivers, to be honest. Their defense is young and flying around. Aaron Donald. There's a good chance whenever you play Aaron Donald, they're lining up Aaron Donald more than most teams would move their best player, even though he doesn't line up on the right tackle. They're going to line him up on Cole McKivitz. They're going to line him up on the center, the right guard, left guard, move him around as that chess piece. That's kind of what they do over there. Raheem Morris is a coach that Kyle absolutely respects more than people understand. Every time they put up that picture where it's like all the coaches, offensive coaches who were in Washington, they forget to leave out one coach. It's Raheem Morris. They forget to leave. They always leave him out. That is a guy that Kyle has always had a lot of respect for. And that's just a team that had no expectations coming into the year. Everyone had written him off. They all thought Stafford was going to retire. That's the team that's rolling into the playoffs hot. One of the hottest teams in the league. That's a very good team right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lotha loves the hat. Yeah, man, I agree. I think that first of all, there's not great quarterbacks in the NFC. They're mostly in the AFC, and we're about to find that out when we do this ranking thing here in a minute. But that being said, Stafford is one of those guys that's locked into the top 7 and is until proven otherwise. When you look at the top 10, it often has 6, 7 guys that are locked in. Those are your 6 or 7. And everybody else kind of rotates in and out of the top 10. You get your Dax one year, your Kylers, your Jimmys, your Tannehills, your who else is out there? Kirk Cousins. Like, these guys will play and flirt with the top 10. Your Hurts, Lawrence, right? These guys will flirt, but they're not mainstays in the top 10. Very few guys are, 6 or 7 at a time usually. Stafford's one of those guys. He's a mainstay top 10 guy, which puts him firmly as a top 7 quarterback, in my opinion. And anytime you've got a quarterback with his skill set that's as good as he is, that has a Super Bowl ring as of recent, and really all the weapons he could ask for. He's got the best running game he's probably had in his whole career. He's got two very good receivers, a good tight end, an offensive line that's young but has improved throughout the year, and a defense that has done enough to keep them in some of these games. This is a team that beat Cleveland soundly. This is a team that in the rain on the road against the Ravens put up 30 points and took them into overtime. This team is dangerous. They are very dangerous. Now, I would expect that the 49ers win that game. I would pick them to do so. But that right there sets up the toughest road that the 49ers could have, in my opinion. It would be the Rams, followed by whoever, Dallas, Lions, it doesn't matter. The toughest road would start with the Rams. And I agree. I think that's the matchup we're going to get. Do you ultimately think that they beat the Lions? Are you willing to go that far? They may be the toughest matchup for us, but not the Lions. Do you think that they beat the Lions, or do you think that the 49ers end up playing somebody else?
Someone said it in the chat. They might drop 40 on the Lions. Like the Lions have no defense. The Lions are they're a great explosive offense. I hate that Stafford has to go back to Detroit and put the dagger in Detroit's heart after they traded him. Like the storyline's great. Like the reason I want the Lions to win is because how Goff was done by the Rams. Yeah. But we all know what's going to happen. Stafford's going to go back into Detroit, put the dagger in their heart. All the fans are going to end up turning and hating Stafford for a couple of years, and then they'll forget about it. But I think they're going to go into Detroit and win. Stafford is a better quarterback than Goff. Sean McVay knows how to defend Goff. That's why he got rid of him. Like they have the recipe.
Yeah, the Rams defense isn't fantastic by any means, but they have improved throughout the year, I believe. And they're young. I mean, it's, again, you when you get a defense like that is young, can make some plays, they're athletic at the very least. So they're going to be in some good positions. I'm not scared of them by any means, but I do think they're the toughest matchup for sure. I just don't think, to your point, Mickey, I don't think that there's a complete team outside of San Francisco, a full, complete team in the NFC that exists. And that's why I feel very confident that the 49ers are going to make it to a Super Bowl. Now, once we get there, we'll see who they play. But to get to that point, I feel very, very good about it. It's why 4 weeks ago, I basically booked the trip to the NFC Championship ready to go. I'm that confident. Put my money where my mouth is. So let's figure it out. They got to win one more, baby. They got to win one more. All right. We've got a super chat here. Travis says, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl colors conspiracy? I've actually brought this up a few times, Travis, more in a joking manner. There is something funny about that where the last 3 years, the colors of the logo have matched the teams. This year, it seems like we're headed towards the same thing because the two best teams are the Ravens and the 49ers. I don't know about all that. I'm not necessarily buying into that as far as a conspiracy, but I think the NFL is a business just like anything else. And I think that at times they make games a little closer than they need to be or what have you. And it's all about the dollar. But I will say this. One thing that should tell you that the league ultimately is not rigged the way that a lot of people think that it is that game last year with the 49ers and the Eagles. Do you think that the NFL, under any circumstances, in an NFC championship, one of their final 3 games of the year, everybody's watching, wanted to have a blowout scenario where one team's playing without a quarterback? Absolutely not. Absolutely impossible. That is not at all what they would wish for. So the NFL is not scripted to that level. But they're lining their pockets. We'll say that.
I do agree with that conspiracy theory though, because before like that TikTok or whatever that thing went viral, or like guy broke it down, my wife had said that. And if I would have gotten her on the pod and had her break down the conspiracy before he did it,
you would have been viral.
I would have been rich. So I wish I would have done it next time. I'm gonna just bring her on and have her break stuff down like that. It was funny. She did that. Go. That goes viral like a month later. I was like, oh dang.
Damn it. Could have been me. That could have been me. All right, let's talk about quarterback ranks. And I want to do this a little bit differently. This is not who you want as your franchise quarterback. This is not who you want the next 5 years. This is not a power rankings of who is the best player right now necessarily. This is all the quarterbacks in the playoffs for one playoff run. Who are you taking and why? So I figure, we haven't talked about this as far as what the list looks like. I think we're going to look pretty different here, actually. I'm excited about this. And I think there are different ways that we can ultimately go. I call it the Purdy ranks because it's a 49ers show, but let's go until we get to Purdy. So that may be number 3 for you. That may be number 10 for you. However long it takes for you to get to number whatever Purdy's at, that's how far your list will go. So let's start at number 1. The number 1 quarterback I would take, and I'm assuming you're going to go the same way. I don't care what the season has looked like. When you've got a guy who's put up the numbers of Patrick Mahomes and has multiple Super Bowl victories, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, and has been this far every year, AFC championship at the bare minimum, that guy you have to go with. And one thing that really stood out to me about Patrick Mahomes is they had the heart rate monitor on him and Josh Allen when they met head to head in the divisional game, when Josh Allen went absolutely crazy throughout that playoff run, 9 touchdown passes, no interceptions, like 350 yards a game, went bonkers, put the Chiefs back against the wall as far as you can with the game-winning touchdown, 13 seconds left. They said after the game that his heart rate, Patrick Mahomes' heart rate, was very high when the defense was on the field. But when he was in the games, it was about as calm as it could be. That guy under pressure does not get spooked. He just wants the ball literally in his hands. Patrick Mahomes has to be number 1 on this list. I don't care if he threw 40 interceptions this year. Patrick Mahomes is the guy you want with the game on the line, playoffs on the line. Give me Patrick Mahomes number 1.
I'm going the same way. Patrick, you can't not take the best quarterback.
Yeah.
We've seen in clutch moments and stuff like that. Mahomes 1, 2. I'm going Stafford. I'm actually going Stafford. I don't know where you're going, but Super Bowl ring. He's been in the playoffs.
I hate you so much right now, bro. I thought this is where we were going to be different. Oh,
I had people who know ball, they know ball, so it is what it is, man. But Stafford has everything. Like he's a strong arm, good pocket quarterback. Now, different kind of quarterback than Mahomes, right? Mahomes could do all that fancy, dancy stuff. Well, Stafford could do it from the pocket. He's won a ring. He is proven to be a winner in the playoffs. So that's where I'm going 2. Now, where you're going 3, that's where it starts to me, to be honest with you, because there's a quarterback that if we're going based off of only the playoffs, nothing else, there's a quarterback that might be pushed up for a lot of people.
All right. Everybody knows that I'm a big Josh Allen fan, and I assume that they would have expected me to put him at number 2. If I'm going pure talent, it's him at number 2, and it's not close in my opinion. It is close, actually. Lamar's right there as well, so I won't say not close. But Allen's my number 2 quarterback in the NFL. But for the playoffs, you're right. I just said that Stafford is a top 7 guy in the NFL, period. Playoffs aside, doesn't matter. He's a top 7 guy. Now you add in the fact that he recently has a Super Bowl ring. Give me Matthew Stafford number 2. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Matthew Stafford at number 2. I'm shocked that you went there.
Well, we went, but people got to understand too, because I know people are in the chat saying hot take, hot take. We're not talking about who's better. We're talking about playoff quarterbacks, what they've done in the past, what have they accomplished, as well as what they might do this playoff. So you have to take into consideration. Stafford has a Super Bowl ring. He's proven to win in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. So that's why I had him over Josh Allen at 3. I have Josh Allen at 3, that's where I'm guessing you have him. Josh Allen. Josh Allen has done phenomenal things in the playoffs. Like Josh Allen has not done anything wrong in the playoffs, but faced Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that stretch he had, man, where he had 9 touchdown passes in 2 games, no turnovers. I mean, It was like 370 something yards a game when you include the rushing. It was an incredible run. And we know that when he gets hot, I'll give you an example. Tommy, I'm glad you're in here so you can vouch for this. Tommy, perfect. Yes, good. I'm glad you made this comment because now I'm about to put you on blast, Tommy. I was going to be nice. Now I'm not going to be nice, Tommy. Now you're going to get the full wrath. You ready for this? Tommy loves to razz me when Allen's not playing good. I love it. If Allen's not playing well, I can count on a DM from Tommy to be like, "What's going on with your boy? I thought he was the guy." Tell me what happened this week, Tommy, when he had the 3 turnovers. You started popping off at the mouth and told me what? It's over for your guy. Da 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 da. And what did I say? I said, Tommy, don't do this right now. One quarterback is Josh Allen. One is Tua. Every time that you run your mouth, you've been wrong. Don't jinx yourself. Allen's still going to win this game. About an hour later, I get the message. What happened? I thought you said Allen was going to pull it out. About an hour after that, Tommy, what happened? What happened, my guy? Yeah, that's right. Josh Allen pulled it off. A lot of fun. Anyways, just a little bit of back and forth between Tommy and I. He's actually very funny. I love that we go back and forth about it, and he always is willing to razz me. That being said, number 3, it's Josh Allen. And yes, we got to take into account past playoff performances. Some quarterbacks have them, some don't. But that's not the end all be all. You also have to take into account talent. If Nick Foles was in these playoffs, I wouldn't be putting him in the top 3, just because he has a ring or something like that. But talent is there. Josh Allen, to me, is the second best quarterback in the league. He has played well in the playoffs, and that's why I put him at number 3. Now, number 4, this is where it gets tough for me. It gets very, very tough. Lamar is clearly the best quarterback left. Right? If we're just doing quarterback and rankings, Lamar would have gone number 1 off of a power ranking. Brock Purdy would have been in the top 3 off of a power ranking. Lamar is likely going to win the MVP for the second time, but Lamar has had some struggles in the playoffs. Now, that being said, I think there are some legitimate reasons as to why he struggled. I think he's matured from where he's at, and I expect that he actually plays well during these playoffs, regardless of whether they win or lose. But man, Purdy has played well in the playoffs. Flacco's won a Super Bowl. Goff has made it to a Super Bowl. Dak's had a very good season. Who else is playing? Stroud's had a very good season, and he's playing well. Now we're starting to get into some conversation here. Ultimately, I am going to go with talent just because I think some of it's a little bit of an unknown, and I am going to ride with Lamar. This one was actually tougher for me than what it should have been. I'm going to go with Lamar at number 4.
I'm very similar in the situation you are. Because like for me, I don't know if I'm able to use CJ Stroud's like college football playoffs and stuff like games against Georgia and stuff like that as something to look at. But I would agree. I would go Lamar. The talent, people always give him shit for losing. I don't think it's necessarily just the quarterback's fault. I would go Lamar. And that's 4, right? At 5,
That's 4.
I'm actually going. You're gonna be like, what? I'm actually going CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud is phenomenal. I think he is a phenomenal quarterback. He's proven himself in college on the big stage, and playing very, very good football on the big stage. He's done phenomenal this year. He had to clutch up in order to make the playoffs. To me, that proves something. When you clutch up first throw of the game, 75-yard bombs away, you're letting the other team know that you're here. You're here. I gotta go with CJ Stroud at 5. And the reason is Purdy did play well last year in the playoffs. He did, but he also struggled a little bit in one of those games. So it is what it is. I'm going the unknown of CJ Stroud over Purdy right now.
I do love me some CJ Stroud. Now, this is actually the toughest decision for me. It got dicey at Lamar, and this is where it gets really tough. And I'll tell you why it's tough. Looking at Joe Flacco, go look at his playoff numbers. First of all, the year they won the Super Bowl, 4 games. 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1,140 yards passing for the playoff career. He has 15 playoff games. He's played a full season in the playoffs, and he has 25 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Joe Flacco in the postseason is a much different quarterback than what he's been in the regular season. Let's also not forget that the year that they won the Super Bowl, they wanted to pay Joe Flacco going into that year. Joe Flacco said, no, I'm going to become a free agent. I'm going to bet on myself this season. Not only did he bet on himself and do very well, he bet on himself and won a freaking Super Bowl and was damn near perfect in the playoff run. Absolutely incredible. Now he's got a very good defense. Quite frankly, the game he played back in those late 2010 period or 2000s period into the 2010s, that game was much harder for quarterbacks. That game was much more physical. Now this game is much easier on quarterbacks, and I think that's why you're seeing somebody like Flacco literally come off the couch, come in and throw for like 350 yards a game after game after game, without some of his best offensive linemen, without his running back, because he's just seasoned. He knows how to do this. So there is a big part of me that really wanted to put him at number 5. I really did. I'm probably going to put him at 6. Now the conversation becomes this. You've got guys like Purdy, you've got Stroud, you've got Love, who I talked about. All three of these guys are young. Really their first full season. They've all put together very, very good seasons. You've got Dak, who's a veteran, who has choked a bit in the playoffs, but he's put together a very good season. And then you've also got Goff out there, who, you say what you want about Goff, but I remember him going head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes on a Monday night game, putting up like 50 points, and him also making it to a Super Bowl, and he's made multiple Pro Bowls. He's not as awful as people think. For me, I can't put Stroud there, even though if I'm picking quarterbacks that I want for next year, Stroud's definitely in the top 5. No questions asked. He's in that top 5. I think CJ Stroud's going to be a baller. He's playing very, very well. I love CJ Stroud. But he hasn't done anything yet. Love hasn't done anything yet. Goff, to me, has no mobility. I can't go with him. I'm actually going to go with Brock Purdy because he's the one that has a couple games, and they are recent, and he put together a very, very good season this year. So right there is where the buck stops for me. Number 5, Brock Purdy. But it was close. I almost went with Flacco. If I would have went with Flacco, I would have had Brock at 6, CJ Stroud at 7, and so forth and so on. Who do you have at number 6?
Actually, it's funny because you have flipped it. I have Brock Purdy at 6, right after CJ Stroud. And the reason why I have CJ Stroud at 6 is first time playoffs. We had a phenomenal rookie year. I've seen him in the college football playoffs. Now, it's not the same as the NFL, but when you're going up against a Georgia defense and you go 350 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, another 40 yards rushing, he's proven himself. Now, Brock Purdy is right after him in terms of he's done well in the playoffs. He's had one game where he struggled a little bit. He's also gotten hurt in the playoffs. So it's like playoffs is a lot different. Like playoffs is 90s style of football. And what I mean by that is you're going to get hit. Even quarterbacks are going to get hit. So for me, that's why I have Brock Purdy right behind him. I get that it's going to be like people are, oh, that's controversial. I get that. I 100% understand that Brock Purdy could most likely probably should be over Stroud, but I'm using, and I cheated. I used the college football playoffs game against Georgia to give myself something to go off of Stroud. And that's why I have Purdy right after.
Well, listen, I people can say what they want, but you can show me all the numbers you want that will make you sleep at night. But if you just watch CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud's the better player. He's better than Brock Purdy. That, to me, I have no problem with you saying. But for me, it's just who's played in the playoffs, who's done pretty decent. I think Brock has. Brock's also coming off of a very good season. And, I got to go with Brock at number 5, Flacco at 6, and then I would put Stroud at 7. But going forward, like if you're asking me who am I taking between Brock Purdy and Stroud, give me Stroud, and I'm not even thinking about it. It's not even a question for me. So I see why you're going with Stroud. I think some of it is projection. I also think here's what I will say, though. I think Stroud was essentially in a playoff game last week, and we saw how it went. He played very well last week in a scenario that was a must-win scenario for them. First throw of the game, 55 air yards, absolute dime touchdown, and we saw him under pressure play a very, very good game and make some throws that not many quarterbacks in this league can make outside of maybe 4 or 5, and he's one of them on that list. He's absolutely incredible. So I do think that you can use that as your argument as to why you might be able to put him at number 5 as well. So
what's crazy though, Jesse, before we head out, is he's playing against the Browns, which is a really good defense. If he does struggle, people are like, "Well, what happened? Look what happened."
Of course.
Look what most quarterbacks have done against the Browns defense.
Yeah.
But that's what I have to say, because I know people are going to use that argument if he does poorly.
For sure.
Which I don't think he is.
For sure. That being said, I got to get over to the NFC West roundtable. Appreciate y'all. Much love. I would love in the comment section afterwards, put your top 5, who you rolling with in the playoffs. I think it's an interesting topic of conversation. Marco, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow here, Last Second Sports with Sunil. Make sure you catch that. Peace.